There's a kind of man the world never notices. Not because he's weak, but because he's silent. He walks like a shadow across cracked concrete, carrying wars inside his ribs that no one sees. His hunger is quiet. His rage is stored. He smiles politely, while his soul decays behind dead eyes. You know him. You are him. This isn't about success. This is about survival. This is about escaping the velvet chokehold of comfort. Before it erases your soul, they want you soft, obedient, numb. But somewhere in your blood, there's a wolf pacing. There's fire waiting to burn through the frost. There's a crown buried beneath years of silence and shame. This video is not to inspire you. It is to awaken you from sleep, from sedation, from the machine that grinds men into dust. You're not lost. You're dormant. It never starts with chains. No. Chains would wake you up. They'd rattle in your ears. You'd fight back. But comfort is smarter than that. It doesn't kick the door down. It slips in through the cracks. A soft bed, a full belly, a screen that scrolls forever, and the whisper of, "You've earned this." It sounds like kindness, feels like peace, but it's not. It's a sedative, a slow fog wrapping around your limbs like velvet rope. At first, you breathe deeper. You smile. You tell yourself this is what you needed. Rest. But stay there long enough, and something shifts. Your edge dulls. Your hunger dies. And the fire inside starts to forget it ever existed. Not from one day. Not from one choice. But from the hundreds of tiny moments where you chose ease over effort. Silence over the fight. Softness over struggle. And here's the truth. No one wants to say out loud. Comfort is a slow knife. It kills without leaving a scar. It doesn't come for your body. It comes for your will. The part of you that claws. The part that climbs. The part that doesn't sleep until it conquers. And when that part goes quiet, the rest of you follows. See, men aren't destroyed by storms. Storms sharpen you. Storms teach you. Storms wake something ancient in your blood. A call to rise, to move, to hunt. No, men are erased by luxury, by the warm shower that keeps you from cold mornings, by the soft words that excuse your weakness, by the tiny comforts that feel good now but cost you everything later. It doesn't chain you. It doesn't have to. Because if you never try to run, you never realize you're in a cage. That's the game. A world that flatters you into sleep, that distracts you into mediocrity, that convinces you the fire inside was just childish anger, when it was actually your compass. Because once a man stops reaching, he stops becoming. He becomes static, predictable, tame, and that's the kind of man this world prefers. Not dangerous, not sharp, not sovereign, just pleasant, easy to manage, grateful for scraps, so long as they come with a smile. But here's the dagger. They don't have to break you. If they can slowly convince you that you're already whole, that there's nothing left to chase, nothing left to prove, no war worth fighting, and that softness, that's the real enemy. Not pain, not hardship, but the gentle loving hands that hold you down, while whispering, "This is good for you." How many men fall into that trap? How many trade their edge for applause, their fire for peace, their destiny for dopamine? They think they're resting, but they're rotting. Because rest is a weapon only if it follows the war, not if it replaces it. You were not built for sedation. You were not built for stillness. You were not built for couches, screens, and slow deaths. You were built to move, to feel the bite of cold air, to sweat under the weight of purpose, to suffer, to sharpen, to become. And if no one's told you, then let this cut through the fog. The comfort you're in is not peace, it's poison. And the longer you stay, the harder it is to remember the way out. So ask yourself, when was the last time you were truly hungry? When was the last time your heart beat hard? Not from fear, but from fire. When was the last time you chose the harder path, just to remember you could? Because the men who remember pain are dangerous, but the men who forget hunger, they're already gone. So either you wake up now, or you never wake up at all. Pain isn't the enemy. It never was. But most men spend their whole lives running from it. Like it's death in disguise, like it's failure, like it's weakness. But that's a lie. A beautiful, convenient lie. The truth? Pain is your forge. Discomfort is your fire. You weren't made to avoid it. You were made to walk through it. Not with tears, not with noise, but with that quiet wolf-like resolve that says, let it burn. I'm not moving. Because the more pain you avoid, the weaker you become. It's not the hardship that breaks you. It's the habit of dodging it. Men don't rot from injury. They rot from softness, from silence that should have been spoken, from confrontations that were swallowed, again and again, until the mirror doesn't recognize them anymore. This is where most fall. They think strength means smiling when it hurts. They think being a man means pushing it all down, pretending they're fine. But wolves don't play dress-up. They don't need to pretend. They don't flinch when it's cold. They flinch when they're fed. Because the wild doesn't sharpen you when you're full. It sharpens you when you're starving, when you're freezing, when your bones ache and the wind cuts through your skin like knives. And still you keep walking. That's where the edge comes from. Not from books, not from podcasts, not from thinking positive, but from the 1,000 silent wars a man fights when no one's watching. The urge to quit, the weight of regret, the mirror that asks, is this who you are? Most turn away, but some look deeper, and in that stare, they see the predator waking up. But here's the paradox. The more comfort you seek, the more fragile you become. The more you chase warmth, the colder you feel inside. And the more you avoid the burn, the more it owns you. So make peace with it. Make peace with the cold shower, with the skipped meal, with the isolation that echoes like a canyon inside your chest. Not for attention, not for a story, but because suffering must be chosen, if strength is to be earned. Men talk about discipline like it's a system, but it's not. It's a scar. It's built in silence, not when things are easy, but when they're brutal, when everything in you screams to stop, and you whisper back, no. You want to be dangerous, then train in discomfort, fast in the presence of temptation, breathe deeply in the face of rage, hold your ground when everything shakes, learn to feel pain like a monk tastes fire, not as punishment, but as a teacher, because the fire doesn't burn the real ones, it reveals them. So let it cut you, let it show you where you're still soft, where you're still scared, where the little boy inside still flinches, and then kill that boy, not with cruelty, with clarity, because the man you want to become is buried underneath everything you're still avoiding. The confrontation, the cold, the solitude, the truth. This is your path now, not the comfortable one, not the one that makes people clap, but the one that makes you bleed just enough to remember that you're alive. So stop running from the burn, start listening to it, because if it doesn't hurt, it doesn't hold weight. If it doesn't challenge, it doesn't change. And if it doesn't scare you, even a little, it's probably not worth doing. You weren't born soft. You didn't come into this world afraid. You didn't care about being polite. You didn't flinch at confrontation. You were pure fire, unfiltered, raw, and honest. But slowly, they chipped at you. Not with fists, with words. Be nice. Sit still. Don't make people uncomfortable. And so, you obeyed. Because that's what boys do to survive a world that punishes strength when it isn't domesticated. You learned to smile when you were angry, to shrink when you wanted to roar, to laugh when you wanted to cry, or kill, to pretend. Over time, the pretending became permanent, and the real you. He went into hiding, deep beneath the layers of approval, of performance, of survival. And now when you look in the mirror, you see him. The mask, the polite face, the charming man, the nice guy who doesn't cause waves. But beneath that smile is a scream. Beneath that calm is chaos. Beneath that shell is a man who hasn't felt real in years. That emptiness you feel, it's not weakness, it's exhaustion. From carrying the weight of a life that isn't yours. From wearing a face that doesn't fit. From playing a role that slowly murdered the part of you that wanted more. But here's the bitter truth. You can't become him. The man you were meant to be, until you kill who you've been pretending to be. And that collapse feels like death. Because in a way it is. It's the funeral of your false identity. Of the nice guy. Of the appeaser. Of the boy who needed everyone's permission to breathe. Let him die. Because he was never strong enough to lead. He was built to survive, not to conquer. He was made to fit in, not to stand alone. And the man inside you, the one who doesn't flinch, doesn't beg, doesn't apologize for his fire. He's been waiting, watching, bleeding behind your eyes, every time you bit your tongue, instead of speaking truth. Every time you nodded instead of walking away. Every time you said yes, when your soul screamed no. This is your reckoning. You've come too far to keep hiding, too hungry to keep pretending, too awake to keep sleeping through your own life. So look in the mirror, look past the tired eyes, past the shallow smile, past the image you've been polishing for approval. Ask yourself, who am I without the act? Would I still be liked? Would I still be safe? Would I still be accepted? And then let the silence answer. Because silence doesn't lie. And in that silence, if you listen close enough, you'll hear him. The one who doesn't perform. The one who speaks without filters, moves without fear, acts without needing applause. That man doesn't need validation. He needs vision. He needs to burn every version of himself that was built to please, to impress, to survive. You are not here to fit in. You are here to break form, to tear the mask off, even if it rips skin with it, to drop the act, even if the world turns its back, to stop being liked, and start being real. Because the mask you wear, it's not just hiding you, it's eating you, slowly, daily, silently. And every time you ignore that quiet voice inside, the one that says, "This isn't me," you hand the mask the knife. You let it carve away the man underneath. So kill it, burn the costume, bury the character, shatter the role, even if it leaves you alone, even if it leaves you naked. Because only in that collapse can you finally rise. Power doesn't shout. It doesn't chase the spotlight. It doesn't argue in comments. It doesn't explain itself to strangers. It watches. It waits. It sharpens. And when the time comes, it strikes. Quick, clean, decisive. Most men fear silence. They confuse it with absence, with invisibility, with weakness. But silence is not the absence of power. It's the proof that you don't need noise to possess it. Because lions don't speak. They stare. That's the kind of presence that shakes a room. Not volume, not drama, not performance. Just the cold, immovable stillness of a man who knows who he is, and no longer needs to convince anyone. They won't understand it, because the world trains men to be loud, to talk more than they move, to fill silence with nervous laughter, fake confidence, and borrowed opinions. But you don't owe the world your voice. Not until it's sharp, not until it's deliberate. Every word you don't say sharpens your blade. Every conversation you walk away from builds your discipline. Every time you choose stillness over reaction, you take one step closer to the throne no one else can sit on. Because silence, it's not emptiness, it's storage. It's where your pain gets sorted, where your thoughts are trained, where your instincts become strategy. It's the war room no one sees, the gym no one posts, the tears no one hears. Silence is where you break, and build, and become. The man who learns in silence will never be owned by noise. He doesn't chase applause. He doesn't beg for recognition. He doesn't talk just to be heard. He studies. He stores. He stalks his vision like a shadow, never breaking formation, never giving away his next move. And that quiet nature they mocked, that stillness they told you was weakness, it was your weapon the entire time. Because the loud ones, they need to be seen. They need validation to breathe. They need attention to survive. But you build in the dark. You prepare where no one's watching. You stack bricks in silence. One rep, one rejection, one lonely night at a time. And when the walls rise, when the crown appears, they'll ask where it came from. They won't believe it was always there. Beneath the noise, beneath the mask, beneath the man they overlooked. But you'll know, because you earned it, not by being louder, but by being unshakable. Stillness isn't silence. It's sovereignty. It's restraint. It's dominance held back by choice. A man who can hold his tongue can hold a kingdom. Because the ones who speak the least, They feel the most. They just don't advertise their wounds. They alchemize them into discipline, into vision, into presence. So let them keep barking. You just keep building. Let them fight for followers. You train for legacy. Let them make noise. You make moves. Because the throne doesn't belong to the loudest voice. It belongs to the last man standing. There's a war happening inside you. Not the kind anyone sees. Not with blood or blades. But something older, quieter, darker. It's not between good and evil. It's between who you are and who you've been trained to be. You were taught to be calm, to stay in control, to bottle it all. The rage, the ache, the unspoken storms. Smile when it hurts. Stay nice when you want to scream. And over time you became the mask they needed. But not without a cost. Because your body remembers the war your mind denies. That tension in your jaw. That fire in your chest. That restless ache you feel when you're alone. That's not weakness. That's not burnout. That's unprocessed violence. Buried emotion doesn't die. It mutates into numbness, into silence, into self-betrayal. Because every time you swallowed your anger, every time you ignored your instincts, every time you chose peace at the cost of your truth, you didn't avoid conflict. You just turned it inward. And now the battlefield isn't out there. It's beneath your skin. A civil war between the man you were born to be and the version they manufactured. The polished one, the agreeable one, the harmless one. But that real version of you, the untamed one, he didn't die. He's pacing in the shadows of your soul, clenching his fists, begging you to feel again. Because rage isn't the enemy. Numbness is. Rage, at least, means there's still fire. It means something in you still knows. This isn't who you are. This isn't what you came here to be. This life of pretending, of suppressing, of making yourself small so others can stay comfortable. That's the prison. Not anger, not pain. Those emotions were never your weakness. They were your signal, your invitation to return. But instead of transmuting it, you've been sedating it. Food, screens, noise, nods. The slow suicide of always being fine. But you weren't born for fine. You were born for fire. And the fire beneath your skin is not there to burn you. It's there to forge you. So stop numbing it. Stop apologizing for it. And start using it. Let the pain write. Let the anger run. Let the grief lift iron and scream into pillows. And walk into wind until it finally leaves your lungs. Don't perform your healing. Practice it. In silence. In sweat. In solitude. You don't need an audience to evolve. You need ritual. You need friction. You need to bleed out the parts of yourself that were taught to hide, taught to please, taught to shrink. Let your fists talk when words won't. Let your legs walk miles your mind can't yet make sense of. Let your breath be the only thing you listen to for a while. And in that quiet, that's where you'll hear him again. The one you buried, not the polished man. The primal one. The one who never forgot. The one who still fights. The one who still knows what it feels like to burn with purpose. This war inside you isn't here to break you. It's here to wake you. You are not here to stay safe. You are here to reclaim the parts of yourself you were taught to silence. Because true power isn't about holding it all in. It's about knowing when to release. And the men who learn to master that release, not through chaos, but through clarity, they become kings, not because they're emotionless, but because they finally stopped running from the fire and learned how to wield it. They won't understand your silence. They'll call it distance, coldness, selfishness. Let them. You're not here to be understood. You're not here to be clapped for. You're not here to keep pace with men who stopped running long ago. You're here to disappear and reforge. Because every man who becomes something first becomes nothing. They think you've lost your way, but you know what they don't. You left on purpose, not out of weakness, not out of fear. But because some wars must be fought alone, you weren't abandoned. You were chosen for exile. Every king has his cave. Every warrior has his winter. Every prophet has his silence. This is yours. You don't build clarity in crowds. You don't find yourself in noise. You find him, the real you. When the applause dies and the mirrors crack. This is not loneliness. This is strategic solitude. Exile is the space between who you were and who you must become. And no one will walk with you through it. They're not supposed to. Because this road doesn't reward followers. It rewards the man who keeps walking. When there's nothing left to prove, and no one left to please. This is where you bury the boy. This is where you burn the map. This is where the herd fades behind you. And the mountain rises in front. And the mountain doesn't care who you were. It doesn't care how loud you were, how popular, how liked. It only asks one question. Can you climb alone, not once, again, and again, and again, with no music, no camera, no affirmation, just your breath, your scars, and the voice inside that whispers, more. Most men break here, because they confuse exile with punishment. But you know better. Exile is not exile, it's elevation. You don't lose the world to punish yourself. You lose the world to find your edge, to trade comfort for confrontation, to stop performing and start becoming. This silence is your furnace. This solitude is your sword. And when you return, if you return, you won't need to say a word, because the man who left, he's gone. The one who comes back, he doesn't need validation. He doesn't seek forgiveness. He doesn't explain his absence. He carries it, in his eyes, in his walk, in the weight of his stillness. The king does not return with noise. He returns with presence. You weren't made for the herd. You were made for the high place, where it's cold, where it's quiet, where the air thins and the weak fall off. So let them talk. Let them misunderstand. Let them mock the silence you now wear like armor. They only see the distance. They don't see the ritual, the sharpening, the confrontation with your demons. That happens when the lights go out. But you know the cave is not your prison. It's your temple. The mountain is not your punishment. It's your proving ground. This exile, it's not where you vanish. It's where you ascend. Most men want power they can show. Titles, followers, applause, crowns made of gold and noise. But real power is invisible. It doesn't flash. It doesn't bark. It doesn't need recognition. Because the real throne is internal, not over nations. Over yourself. Master your mind. Rule your emotions. Control your impulses. That's the only crown they can't take from you. But most will never wear it. Because it's earned in silence, forged in fire, and worn in the shadows. This isn't about being feared. It's about being untouchable, unmoved by chaos, unshaken by betrayal, unreactive when the game gets dirty. Because you've already anticipated every move. That's the mark of a tactician. And if you want to win, truly win, you can't be emotional. You must be strategic. You must become the man who doesn't flinch. He calculates. The man who doesn't scream. He studies. The man who doesn't fight every battle, because he knows some wars are won through patience. You weren't made to be a slave to your reactions, to let someone's words hijack your peace, to let failure unravel your discipline, to let impulse detour your legacy. That's what boys do. They react. They explode. They need to be right, seen, loud. But kings move in silence. They see the storm and remain still. They hear the insult and say nothing. They feel the emotion and don't act on it. Because power isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about containing it and converting it into action so precise. It looks effortless. That's cold mastery. That's the shadow crown. The internal sovereignty no one sees, but everyone feels. You don't need to be the loudest man in the room. In fact, if you are, you've already lost. Because the loud man exposes himself. He tells the world where to cut him. He shows his cards. He bleeds in front of wolves. But the quiet man, he studies the board. He calculates the angle. He smiles, because he's already moved 4 steps ahead. This isn't about ego. It's about evolution. From emotional slave to psychological sovereign. From a man who gets triggered to a man who triggers transformation by presence alone. You want power? Start here. Start with the war inside. The storm of urges. The knee-jerk reactions. The need to respond. To retaliate. To win now. Let them go. Because control of self is control of everything. Let others play checkers. You play silence. Let others chase applause. You chase control. Let others react. You build, brick by brick, breath by breath, in dark rooms, with no one watching, until your discipline becomes armor, until your presence becomes pressure, until your silence becomes strategy. And when they finally look up, they'll wonder how you got there, not realizing you were never competing, you were constructing. And while they performed, you prepared. So no, you don't need a visible crown. You wear yours where it matters most. Inside, unshakable, unstoppable, undeniable. All men burn. But not all men rise. Some burn from the outside in. By life, by chance, by chaos. They never saw coming. A breakup, a betrayal, a bullet with their name on it. They didn't choose it. They just woke up one day in flames. And some burn by choice. They step into the fire with open eyes, knowing exactly what it's going to take, knowing how much it's going to hurt. They don't run from the heat. They invite it, because they understand something most men never will. You will suffer, either way. The only question is whether that suffering sharpens you or rots you, whether it forges a man with teeth or leaves behind a shell with a story. That's the law. That's the price. You don't get strength without pain. You don't get clarity without pressure. You don't get to lead until you've first been destroyed. But destruction can be sacred. If you walk into the furnace on your own terms, the cold shower, the disciplined diet, the rejection you face head on, the heartbreak you let carve into your ribs instead of hiding behind distractions, the silence you sit in until the noise inside finally quiets. These things don't break you. They build you. Because fire, when chosen, becomes your ally. It cleans out the lies, burns off the laziness, exposes the weakness and gives you a choice. Forge or fold. Most men fold. Not because they're cowards, but because they've been trained to think pain is punishment. But pain isn't punishment. It's a process. It's the doorway between who you were and who you need to be. You think a man becomes dangerous by reading books. No. He becomes dangerous by walking through fire, with nothing but his breath and his will to carry him. When you embrace that, you stop flinching. You stop avoiding the hard things. You start seeking them, not because you enjoy suffering, but because you respect what it gives you. Every bruise, every rejection, every lonely night, every moment you wanted to quit, but didn't. That's the forge. That's the fire that forms you. And you get to choose it. You get to walk into it, before life throws you into it, without warning. Because if you burn now, you don't rot later. You become the man who doesn't shake in storms. You become the man who doesn't beg to be saved. You become the man who walks out of the fire still standing. And most of the world, they'll never see it. They'll only see the result. The sharpness, the presence, the self-mastery that makes them uncomfortable. They won't understand where it came from. But you will, because you earned it. In the dark, in the fire, when no one else was watching. So don't chase comfort. Don't chase applause. Chase the burn, the voluntary friction, the daily resistance, the weight you carry even when no one's checking. Because that fire, it isn't here to kill you. It's here to crown you. The machine doesn't want you dead. It wants you docile. It wants your eyes down, your hunger numbed, your strength sedated. Not because you're a threat, but because you could be. And that possibility terrifies them. Because a man who is sharp, a man who is disciplined, focused, alert, that man is ungovernable. So they don't fight you with force. They fight you with comfort. They hand you the weapon, and they call it pleasure. Porn to dissolve your edge. Processed food to dull your body. Screens to drain your time. Clicks, likes, swipes, dopamine on tap. A prison built from choices you think are yours. But they're not. They've been engineered, optimized, to distract, to pacify, to own you, without chains. Because if they can keep you comfortable, they'll never need to keep you chained. That's the system. Not to kill your body, but to kill your will. To make you so entertained that you forget what it felt like to be hungry, to be wild, to move like a storm, to walk into a room and feel the power in your spine. You weren't built for sedation. You were built for conquest. But they don't fear your muscles. They fear your clarity. They fear what happens when you stop numbing, when you stop scrolling, when you stop looking for the next hit of pleasure, and start looking inward. Because when a man does that, truly does that, he remembers who he is, what he's capable of, and how far he's fallen. And that realization, it's brutal. Because it strips the illusion. You're not soft because you're broken. You're soft because you've been trained that way. To obey, to comply, to be agreeable, to seek peace in exchange for silence. But here's the truth. They'll never tell you. Your softness is not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Because the longer you stay asleep, the harder it is to wake up. And the machine doesn't care if you ever do. It's patient. It plays the long game. All it needs is for you to keep choosing the easy path. One meal, one tap, one small surrender at a time. Until one day, you forget you ever had teeth. You forget what it felt like to hold your own pain, like a blade, and forge through it. You forget how powerful silence can be, how sharp you once were, how alive discomfort used to make you feel. But you're not dead. Not yet. You're just buried. Under habits you didn't question. Under comfort you didn't earn. Under a life that was designed, not for your freedom, but for your compliance. And now you have a choice. To stay plugged in, or to pull the plug. To keep numbing, or to start noticing. What you eat, what you consume, what you follow, what you tolerate, what you allow to enter your mind, your body, your time. Because your cage isn't made of steel. It's made of your own choices. And every small decision you make is either a key that unlocks you, or a lock that tightens the bars. So no, the machine doesn't come for you with fire. It comes for you with comfort. And if you're not careful, you'll thank it for your chains. No trumpets. No parades. No spotlight. Just stillness. A man stands where a boy once kneeled. Not louder, just heavier. Not seeking power, being it. He doesn't announce himself anymore. He enters a room like gravity, without noise, without permission. Because the real ones don't ask to be seen. They see, they watch, they measure, they calculate, and strike only when the blade is sharpened. This isn't about charisma. This isn't about charm. This is about presence. The weight of a man who has bled in silence, suffered in exile, and returned without the need to explain a single scar. No one will understand what it took. Good. They're not supposed to. The process was never for them. It was never about being clapped for. It was about becoming the kind of man who doesn't need applause. Because he carries truth in his spine. The fire didn't kill you. It formed you. The solitude didn't break you. It refined you. The silence didn't swallow you. It gave you clarity. You are no longer becoming. You are stoic, strategic, sovereign. No more explaining. No more chasing. No more proving. There is nothing left to earn. There is only what you now embody. Danger, controlled, emotion, mastered, power, quiet. You don't react. You don't overreach. You move like a shadow with a sword behind your back. Not to intimidate, but to command. Not to dominate others, but to never be dominated again. You understand now. The throne was never something to sit on. It was something to carry. Not on your head, not around your finger, but deep in your spine, where posture meets principle. This isn't the loud climax. This is the return. The man who walks back into the world not to join it, but to reshape it, through discipline, through stillness, through choices no one will see, but everyone will feel. The mask is gone. The boy is buried. The doubt has burned. And now what's left is just you. And that's more than enough. Let them wonder where you went. Let them question the silence. Let them sense the shift. But never understand it. You don't need to correct their assumptions. You don't need to show your scars. Because power doesn't explain itself. It reigns silently, relentlessly, without a crown, but with a presence that bends the room. You've stepped out of the noise. You've stepped out of the game. You've stepped into the rain. No one gave you, but you took. Now, you move different, because you are different. Not a man looking for his edge. A man who became it. So walk with calm, with clarity, with the quiet weight of a man who has nothing left to prove. Because he survived the forge.